Hi folks, welcome to the Creative Nomad, presented by TrueAwesomeLife.com. I'm your host, JP Adkins, and I created this podcast because I want to tell the stories of the radicals, the ones who are out there making the world a better, more beautiful place. The amazing authors, artists, musicians, thought leaders, coaches, and yes, nomads who are out there living their true awesome lives and want to help others do the same. Are you ready to live your true awesome life? Go to TrueAwesomeLife.com and start your journey today.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Creative Nomad. I am so excited to be here today. It's been a while. It's been a couple of weeks. Ken and I have been playing phone tag, which has been fun. Thank goodness he's okay. And, you know, Ken is just such an amazing person. I'm going to let him introduce himself. Ken, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, thanks, Jeff. I appreciate you so much. You know, that was the first time I actually saw the intro video. I'd been listening to your podcast, but I hadn't actually seen the video. So great intro video, by the way. You really are a little nomad. I can tell that for sure. So my name is Ken Noble, and I am an executive director with the John Maxwell team. Well, former John Maxwell team. It's Maxwell Leadership now. I've been doing coaching and leadership training and development for, over 20 years, but in my own business for the last 5. And so I'm just out connecting with coaches and seeing what I can do to add value to their people, and that's just kind of what I want to do. I just want to make the world better by being the change that I want to see in the world, as Gandhi said. I just love that quote, and it's really kind of who I am and what I'm about.
Yeah, I love it. You know, it's interesting to me. John Maxwell just created, in a lot of ways, the coaching industry. You know, what was it like? What is it like working in his systems? You know,
so he started off with just kind of his platform, his speaking, and then it grew into his company. And then in 2011, he began to do coaching, speaking, training, development. And since then, he's become one of the foremost coaching training companies. And the thing about John Maxwell is he is so authentic. The things that you see him write about, the things you see him talk about, it's the same behind the scenes. You know, when we're in a closed room with executive directors or those of us in the mentorship program, I mean, he's just that real and authentic. I mean, I've never met anyone, no matter how high up the organization that you go, that says, yeah, you know, that's all kind of a facade. He's so authentic. And I really think that's what sets him apart.
Yeah. It's hard. Authenticity is hard. Right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It's very hard to just be yourself with the confines of the world's expectations upon you. You know,
Yeah.
You and I were talking earlier. I was in ministry for almost 20 years, and the expectations of a pastor is very, very tough, very difficult. It leads to stress and burnout and all kinds of things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the reasons why, I don't use some of the honoraries I can use, like Reverend or Pastor, or things like that. You know, people, it's because I don't want that kind of pressure. I want to be, once you put label on something, as the Tao says, once you label it, you've taken away its power.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too is when you introduce yourself or you say, hey, I'm a pastor or whatever, people do one of two things. Either one, they want to tell you about their beliefs and why theirs is better than yours, or two, they won't be authentic and real with you. So it just, because, they kind of expect you to be perfect and, like higher than or whatever. And I'm like, oh my gosh, if you knew how screwed up I really was.
There is a very famous quote that, and I can't think of who said it, but God doesn't take the perfect; He takes the possible.
Yeah,
something like that.
One of my favorites is God doesn't call the qualified; He qualifies the called.
That's what it. I'm like, wait a second, the quote wasn't right.
Oh, was that the one? Was that the?
It probably was.
Okay.
Pretty good.
So. But yeah, I mean, it's just so weird. Even when I was first starting my business and I was just certified with Maxwell Leadership, and I would say, hey, my name's Ken Noble. I'm certified team member with the John Maxwell team. It was different than whenever I said, hi, my name's Ken Noble, and I'm an executive director with the John Maxwell team. It's amazing how titles kind of change the way people perceive you.
Yeah. And the funny thing is that I was just teaching on this in my, I did a workshop last week. And one of the things we talk about is living into listening, right? And
Yeah.
we unconsciously will live into the listening of the person that is there. And
Yes.
we give each other scripts all the time. So that
So
we'll
true.
just go through, and we don't even realize we're doing it until later. I was with this business and it didn't work out. But one of the reasons it didn't work out is because the script I handed them didn't work. Right.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take full responsibility for the fact that I wasn't right for this team either. Right.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of it is we're just simply trying to connect with people around us, right? One of the things that we talk about in communication is the law of common ground, right? We connect with each other on common ground. And if you're not given enough clues as to what that common ground might look like, or you haven't done due diligence to research what that common ground is, you're stumbling through and you're giving them what you think they want to hear.
Right.
So, I agree with your point 100%. And even if you do have common ground, right, you're still feeding them a script of what you think they want to hear.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes, yeah, definitely. I work really hard to not do that.
Teach me your ways, oh Jedi.
But it takes me, so I wake up every morning and I actually read who I am. Like literally, I remind myself every day who I am at my highest, because I'm not that person when I wake up. I know better.
That's what coffee's for, right?
And coffee too. Yep. Bring coffee. Yeah. By the way, if anyone listening to this, if you're ever on the show and you feel like you can't eat or drink, or please do. I always have my
cigar.
Coffee with me.
I'm smoking a cigar today.
Whatever it looks like, whatever is you.
Yeah.
This is a conversation, but yeah, I do have to get up. I have to meditate. I have to do things. I have to tell myself who I am. I have to journal. I have to prepare myself for the world, because if I don't, who shows up is whatever script is out there.
Yeah. So I've got to ask you a question, because you brought something to my consciousness just now. Us being coaches, we're always in that coach mode, right? So you said that you work on yourself, right? Your self script, right? Who you are. So my question is, how long did it take you to figure out who you were, based as opposed to who you thought you were based off of everyone's input about who you were?
That took quite a while.
Right.
What's really funny is that I did the Landmark Forum.
Okay. I've heard a lot about it. I've never done it, but I've heard a lot about it.
Wonderful. I tell everyone, before you get into any other coaching program, if you do the Landmark Forum, any other coaching program is going to build off of it somehow. Right? Something that you got, something that you did. And what it does is it brings you to a space where you can create. That's the major thing that it does. It brings you to a space where you can create whatever it is you want to create. And now I still didn't know who I was. And I still had all the scripts. And I did a couple of other programs with them. One of them is their training program, their leadership training program. And fourth weekend, so it's a 6-month program, and there's 4 weekends that are part of that. And on the fourth weekend, I don't even know what the weekend is. I can't tell you what the weekend is, but the day before it, I got this idea of being the space for life to show up.
I like it.
And once that cemented, boom, right? It I can't think of myself any other way. It's so oh my goodness, I'm a space for life to show up, and I can create whatever it is and make it whatever meaning around that. Right. But if you look at A Course in Miracles, the very first lesson is you're a meaning making machine. Basically, nothing that you have created meaning for, it means that. If you look at Taoism, anything that anything that you put a label on is not the Tao. It's not its full power, because so once you start from there, being a space, it allows a breath of whatever. I always say I'm a divine space. I'm a divine space anchored by my in-breath and solidified by all other sparks of the divine. That's who I am at my core.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I saw that you posted that somewhere, maybe Facebook or something.
It's
I can't remember, but I remember reading it. Yeah.
It's pretty much that is. And when I introduce I really do introduce myself like that. And then I start talking about labels that are put on me.
Mhm.
You know, one of the labels I put on myself is Jeff. I don't want you to call me a divine space all the time. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
That's a little pretentious. You know, you can call me Jeff. So when you actually get into that, and you get to define what it is, right? I for a long time, I was a divine spark of creation. Before a divine space, I was a divine spark. I knew I was connected to all. I call it, and the question becomes who created it. So we'll, you know, and we can go through all that whole game too. But when you start taking away human, who are you when you take away human as a label?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we're all spiritual beings having a human experience, as they say, right? I mean, and so the reality is who am I at the core of who I am, right? I'm not a meat suit. I'm a soul housed in a body that is, you know, connected with the spirit of the universe, God, grand overall designer. You know, for me, I have a Christian background, and so a lot of my pillars of truth are actually all of my pillars of truth are rooted in that. You know, and everybody's different, and we have to allow space for those differences.
Definitely.
Right. You know, I think that having a discussion about explain who you are, explain what that means. You know, I think asking the questions will go so much further in the world than trying to tell someone what they can and can't do and what they should and shouldn't do and those kind of things. You know, that's one of the things that being involved in coaching. So I went through my first coaching program while I was still a pastor. And you know, I tell this story all the time. Whenever I was a pastor, people would come to me with their problems and want me to fix it. And so I would sit them down and go, okay, you need to do X, Y, and Z. You know, and then they would come back later and they go, man, it's just not working. And I say, well, are you doing X, Y, and Z? And they're like, no, I haven't done X and Y. I mean, I sort of did Z, but not really. I'm like, okay, well, why not? I just didn't have time. Well, isn't it important to you to fix your problem? Well, yeah. Well, why didn't you know, go back and forth? And then in coaching, you realize that everyone has their own path and journey to take to solve their problem, and they are fully resourced to solve their problem. The coach's position is simply to help them find their way through their problem and access the resources that maybe they're not fully aware of.
Yeah.
And so in the spiritual context, you know, people would come to me and say, hey, I have this problem, I need to fix it. And I would say, okay, well, what do you think is going to do? How are you going to fix it? And they go, oh, well, you know, if I did A more, that would help it. Okay, how important is A to you? Well, it's very important. Well, how often are you doing? You know, and you help them discover their own roadmap. And there was so much more success as opposed to me telling you how to fix it. It was like, let's discover how you already know how to fix it and work from there.
Yeah, one of the forum leaders, somebody that I want to attribute it to Landmark somehow. And I can't, I have it somewhere, but that which is not discovered by themselves will be wasted.
I love that. And I think we're all on a journey of trying to discover that.
Yeah. And the thing is that we believe there's a right answer.
Yeah.
We have this, we have been so conditioned to this duality that that there is a right and a wrong.
Yeah, an either or.
Right.
Instead of a both and.
Right. And it becomes interesting when you start taking that away. You know?
Yeah.
And start poking the holes in the things that we, you know, pretty much hold sacred, right?
Yeah.
Like very famous. One of the things I talk about sometimes when I start talking about non-duality, morality and how integrity is not morality is, morality would say that, we should not kill people. That's the moral thing, right?
Yeah.
Most of us can agree on that. Well, what about the wife that's getting beat, or the husband for that matter?
Yeah.
What happens then? What happens when, they just finally snap and,
Yeah, it's self-defense, right? They're being beaten and they just
Right.
grab a kitchen knife and, and they kill someone.
Right.
Is that right or wrong?
Exactly.
Who determines it?
Who determines that?
Yeah.
Who determines if it's self-defense?
Yeah.
Who determines if it's, what that looks like?
Yeah.
What about war?
Yeah. Yeah. I think at the core, humanity and the consciousness of mankind would say that premeditated murder is wrong, and killing at times is understandable. Maybe not acceptable, but understandable. Yeah. Does that make sense?
It does. But see, it becomes a moral question. Right? And morality can shift from you to me.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, let's look back, 250 years ago, right? The temperance movement was huge, right? It was immoral to drink.
Yeah.
And now you go to HEB and they're giving out wine samples. Sorry, I'm in Texas. We have an HEB. It's a big grocery store here, right?
Yeah.
And they're giving out wine samples, it's like to moms and, anybody just walking to the grocery store, right? I mean, morality definitely shifts, but I think ingrained in the consciousness of humanity, be it the universe or the grand overall designer, there are certain things that we know intrinsically to be not good.
Yeah.
How would that be acceptable terminology? I think
it wouldn't. That don't work.
That don't work, right?
That don't work.
Yeah, murdering your neighbor to take their goods is not working.
Right.
It might work for you, but it doesn't work for your neighbor.
Right, for the overall good. Right.
Yeah.
So it's funny because once you start looking at things in that space and that it either works or it doesn't work, and you start again, it comes back to who you are, right? If you no longer, would it work if I killed people? Like I've often joked about being on I'm at the point where I want to be on the bell tower, right?
Oh yeah,
I'm a bell tower camper. I've never shot a gun in my life.
That's an Austin, Texas throwback right there.
Just
from the 60s.
Yeah, if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it right. I'm gonna be up on a bell tower somewhere. I'm gonna make sure everyone knows it's me. I'll probably jump when I'm done. Like I've put a little bit.
There's some dark spaces in you. We might need to talk through this later.
So these are things that that I've thought of since I was a kid.
Yeah,
like really, I'm definitely Gen X. I've definitely had a little bit too much time to deal with all that.
I'm a Gen Xer through and through.
Right.
And I remember being younger and everybody talking about the 40-year-old white male is kind of the. And now that I'm a 48-year-old white male, I'm like, crap, I'm the enemy now.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be, right?
Well, we aren't, though.
Yeah.
So it's still the boomers.
It's still the boomers. That's true. You're right.
It's still the boomers. So what's funny is we're they talk about us being the forgotten generation.
Yeah. Well, we were the first generation whose parents, for the first time, both parents worked outside of the home. Right. And so we had to learn some type of survival instincts, latchkey kids, whatever that looked like. Pop-Tart generation. Our parents, mom didn't get up in the morning and make breakfast for us.
I joked about this. My dad used to work at 6 o'clock in the morning. Okay. And we had staggered school. So what would happen is the oldest, like depending on which level, right? Once we got to junior high, mom was not the one that woke up with you.
Exactly.
Like you're lucky later in elementary school, she got up, right?
Yeah.
But by that time it's 8:30 and that person is getting up at 8:30.
Yeah.
Right. the one that got up at 6:30, the high school kids, we left in the dark.
Yeah. We walked to school. I remember being an elementary kid walking to school, 6, 8, 10 blocks away.
Mm-hmm.
It was just weird.
We had buses, but they were still, and the funny thing is I bused past 3 different high schools.
Mm-hmm.
Because of where I lived in relationship to my actual school.
Yeah.
Because I lived on the outskirts of the city, but it was kind of a joke. I actually passed 3 different schools, but yeah, we just definitely it was a different experience. And I just saw a video the other day where she said, yeah, so of course we have our kids all talk about their feelings. And of course we had our, we tried to not have that. And we're overprotective, and we plan activities, and our kids' activities are overplanned. And because we want to make sure that if we're not there, that they are with someone.
Yeah.
So.
Which is so foreign to me.
Yeah.
Right. And my kids, it's like my kids, I've got a 24-year-old, a 21-year-old with Down syndrome, and a 16-year-old. Right. And I raised my kids kind of the way I was raised. It's like, why do you have to be in so many events? I mean, just choose one or none.
Right.
Go to school, graduate, and then go do your thing, whether it's college or, The crazy thing is that boomers get such a hard time, but the boomers are the ones that instigated the sexual revolution, the anti-war rallies. I mean, the boomers were revolutionaries.
The young boomers were revolutionaries. The problem is that they got into the 80s.
Yeah.
If the 80s never happened, if we skipped from 70s to 90s, we might have been able to, something would have been okay.
For sure.
The 80s set us back about, I would say, about 50 years in evolution.
Well, I mean, it's like the 80s re-embraced the hierarchy structure of pre-war, industry. Like it's almost like they kind of brought back the Industrial Revolution mentality of all work and no play.
Yeah.
And suit and tie and short hair and, all the things. I remember when I got my job, I was in my mid-teens, and I got my job at Walmart, and we had to wear a button-up shirt with a tie and our Walmart vest. Yeah. Right. And this was, early 90s.
I worked for Pizza Hut for many, many years. I remember getting promoted to a manager. We had we still had ugly plaid shirts for managers. And I remember that we would get, every time a new product got released, they gave us a new color polo, which was cool.
Okay.
They don't do that now. Now they're in t-shirts and jeans. I'm like,
transitioning me in ministry, right? Whenever I first got in ministry, we were in a small church in a small town, right? So it wasn't super uptight.
Yeah.
But still, there was that mentality as a Gen Xer of you dress for the job that you want, if you've got a position of authority, you should dress the part. And so, I was a youth pastor. And so Wednesdays I was dressing like the teenagers, but on Sunday morning I had a shirt, a tie, a sport coat and slacks. And then I went to another church that was much bigger, more laid back. They literally gave me a hard time for wearing a tie. Eventually I started transitioning to jeans and a sport coat. But, by the end of my ministry role, right, the senior pastor on the stage was wearing tennis shoes, jeans, and a shirt. And, it wasn't a t-shirt, but it would be like a polo or an untucked, button down or something, which was so foreign from the way it was, almost 20 years previously when I started.
Yeah.
It was just crazy to see the transitions happen so fast.
Do you think that it was a good thing?
Yes and no. And here's why. One, I feel like some pastors try too hard to be relatable, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? And it kind of gave rise to the superstar pastor, if you know what I mean? Like, oh, I'm super hip, I'm super cool, I'm in jeans and torn jeans and a t-shirt, and I got my chains and my Jordans, and I'm preaching, and I'm going to go hang out at the bars on Friday night, and it just led to this downward slide where you see these mega pastors that at one time were kind of setting the moral tone, right? Going back to the morality piece of, this is how a Christian should live, to, hey, yeah, we're a Christian and this is how we live, to, hey, I'm a Christian, I can do anything. And all of a sudden, this moral chaos erupts, and you see these mega pastors falling into, marital sins and financial sins and all of these things. Now that I think it's always been there, I think that even the suit and tie guys in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, they had some issues going on behind the scenes. They just hid it better, and there wasn't social media and photo phones at every opportunity. And there was a level of, well, we don't really talk about, the pastor's a closeted drunk, and so it's good and bad, right? Well, I don't know. Is it good and bad, or is it just an exposure of things that were false?
I think that it's actually funny. I talked about this again in my workshop the other day.
I wish I would have been there.
I do too, because it was actually really funny. It's interesting that this is on the conversation. We don't plan these. I don't plan these conversations ever.
Absolutely not. We've done zero prep
whatsoever. I read your bio once when I typed it in, when I copied and pasted it, I read it. And, that's why I don't introduce people.
Yeah.
Because it comes off naturally and in more of a conversation. So, and it allows me to have better conversation because I ask questions because I'm curious. Right.
And that's the hard thing about being a guest on podcasts is when, I can only do so much research about JP Adkins online and all that kind of stuff. And then it's like, okay, I want to ask you questions too. And so that's why I asked that question earlier. It's like, okay, I got to ask a question.
Yeah. It's the fun part is, just being there. But one of the things we talked about, I don't remember there was a point.
Oh, the point was we were talking about pastors and just the exposure, and is it good or bad?
Oh, yeah.
Or is it just exposure?
I put on a collared shirt for this workshop.
Oh, okay.
It was a paid workshop. Now, I have nothing against a collared shirt. I used to wear them constantly. So I'm comfortable in a tie.
Yeah.
I'm one of those people that could be comfortable in a tie, but I'm nomadic. Right. Yeah. So there's not really that much for me to do. And yes, I've been here for a little while. I've been in a house for a little bit while my motorhome was being repaired, but I'm getting ready to go nomadic again. And I don't have my dress clothes here. Like I might be able to do a funeral. Right. Yeah. But it was like, I put on a collared shirt for this workshop, and I realized I consciously put on a collared shirt. And then when I went to take it back off, I'm like, well, why am I taking it off now? Like it was one of those. So we got to talk about that, about how clothing could change the perception of what's going on.
Well, I mean, there's been studies that have shown, about the way you dress and the way you're perceived and the way you handle yourself in an interview and all of those things. I mean, I think that we always want to do our best to give a good impression of who we are and how we come across to people. Yeah. I feel like we've circled back to kind of the main point of the conversation earlier, about the scripts that we write for others.
Right.
And I think that we as humans we're desperate for connection. Right. I mean, you're a nomad, but at the same time, I'm sure you've got friends that you talk to when you're on the road and all that stuff, because you want that sense of connection. Mm-hmm. And you strike me as the kind of guy that really hasn't ever met a stranger. And so you probably strike up random conversations while you're on the road, because I know I do.
You'd be surprised. I'm actually, believe it or not, I'm such an introvert unless I have a purpose.
No way. Okay.
So
I'm the total opposite. I am such an extrovert. It's ridiculously off the charts.
I can do a stage all day long. Give me a stage, give me a podcast, give me a purpose, put me behind a bar.
Yeah.
I'll have all the conversation you ever want to have. Right? Put me on the other side of the bar where I have to talk to people, where I have to come up with conversation and be conversational.
Yeah.
Without
a purpose. Yeah.
I can't do it. And it's funny because I do these podcasts. This is literally like being in a friggin', they're not planned. I have no purpose. They really have no set direction, so for me to be that uncomfortable, and it's been like that. I do once in a while, I will have that spark with somebody, like something will energy wise will say, talk to this person, but very much no.
Well, I called that one wrong because you do come across very naturally as a conversationalist. So
thank you.
So, but as we were saying, we want to make sure that we connect well with others. And so we'll dress a certain way. For me, if I'm at home, usually I love being in a tank top and shorts and flip-flops, but I'm not going to show up to a networking event like that. I'm not going to do a presentation like that.
Yeah.
And depending on the type of presentation, I may be full on slacks, sport coat tie. And then sometimes I may just be jeans and then, just a button up like this untucked.
Yeah.
So, I think we try to relate with people around us, and I don't know that that's a bad thing.
No, it does, and I think it does come from our Gen X view of that too, right? Where we grew up in the 80s, so we grew up in that. If you had a good job, you were in a suit and tie. So
white collar, blue collar labels.
Right. So what does that look like?
Yeah.
What does that look like 40 years later?
Yeah.
30 years later?
Yeah. One of my mentors, and you know him as well, Michael Faber.
I love Michael.
Dude, he's great. That's how you and I connected, right? Yeah. And but he's a business mentor of mine. We meet weekly every Monday at 1:00 Central, and he'll show up to any event in sweats, his hat on backwards, and a t-shirt, and he'll speak from the stage just like that. He's gotten past that I feel like I have to dress up, and it just blows me away. I'm like, I don't know that I would ever feel comfortable or authentic doing that, and that's probably because it's not me. If that makes sense.
It's not you.
Yeah.
It's actually funny because I think we were at the same event. We were at Moviemakers Live in Nashville, and I wore stuff from my clothing line.
Okay.
So it was joggers and t-shirts.
Yeah.
And I really wrestled with wearing that because it's joggers and t-shirts, and the joggers are a little tighter. They almost look like tights, like leggings, because they're a little tighter. And I was like, I don't know if I want to wear this to a business event.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's my company.
Exactly.
It's literally, this is me.
Yeah.
So I designed this.
Exactly. If you can't wear it, who would?
Right.
Yeah.
So I was laughing about that. But it did take me, I really did have reservations about it. So it's funny that it still comes up.
Yeah. Yeah. My first event with Faber was, I think it was the Launch in 3 in Delaware. It was a smaller retreat. And I went there, and I mean, I just dressed kind of everyday casual. It wasn't anything special.
Yeah.
And most everybody else was too. But it was just odd, to be in a place where they don't care what you look like or how you dress or anything like that. And I think that part of branding is such a big buzzword these days, right? So part of your brand, of course, is that nomadic lifestyle with the t-shirts and the joggers and all that, and you should.
Right.
For me as a business coach and a business consultant, it stretches me to show up to a company not wearing slacks.
Yeah.
But I'm a nice blue jean, dress shoe, sport coat guy. That's kind of how I roll. I haven't worn a tie in probably since a funeral I did a few years ago.
It becomes, what does it look like to be authentically you, and who is that authentic expression of who you are? And I think that's the best part that's come from this, from the whole change from the suit and tie, is that you could be more authentic, and you being in a jacket and me being in joggers, are both acceptable.
Yeah. And I don't think we judge each other either.
No, I probably wouldn't wear the joggers on stage. I might wear the t-shirt. I probably wouldn't wear the joggers. My joggers are a little wild.
Well, yeah. Well, I was gonna say you could probably wear some looser fitting joggers that maybe are just kind of off brand, but not necessarily, super tight yoga style.
Yeah, and that was an accident. I realized that when I looked at our, because I don't do the fulfillment part of it, I do the design and they fill it. I should have looked at this chart a little bit better, and I would have ordered a size larger. Now it says on there, order a size larger than you normally need to, because they are a little bit, they are our straight leg.
Yeah.
And so it just, they cling a little bit more than many people would be comfortable, many guys would be comfortable with. They look a lot like leggings. Yeah. So, nothing wrong there. If you're comfortable with that, if you have some meat, if you have some meat on your bones, you definitely want to order something.
Well, I've lost about 45 pounds since my accident. And so I'm getting a little bit more comfortable in being fitting, wearing slimmer fitting things. But yeah, I mean, I've still got another 40 pounds to go. That's my target by the end of the year. And because I know that's my true self. It's like, I don't want to be this guy that I want to be a healthy person. I don't want to be an obese person. And so I am a healthy person, and I eat healthy, and I eat accordingly. And, I'm losing the weight to become the person that I know I am on the inside.
Yeah. It's different when the reason I do my workouts and I eat better is because it makes my mental health better. So it's not necessarily about my body and what I wear or what I do, but when I know the difference between when I get up and actually do my morning routine, and my morning routine I use an app. It's 8 minutes of a workout. It's simple. But if I do my morning routine correctly, then I feel better. If I don't, then I don't necessarily feel as good. Although I hate the work. I hate it. It's like, every time I do it, I'm like, oh my God, do I got to do this? Yes, I got to do it. Okay. But I feel better, Yeah. So, and I eat, I can tell you if I've had a pop. Yeah. My blood pressure, I've actually become such attuned to my body now that my blood pressure, I can tell my blood pressure changes. I can tell that I get a little bit of, anxiety going on. And I'm like, oh, I can't drink that anymore. All right, cool.
Yeah. Like for me, just changing my diet, the things that I ingest, I've become so in tune with salty foods. It's like, oh my gosh, that is so salty. And everybody's like, what are you talking about? And it's just because salt is it really is an overused seasoning in today's society that our bodies get so used to it, it almost is nothing. Right. When you intentionally go, okay, I'm going to eat more fruits and vegetables, and I'm going to try to salt that, and you become in tune with it. And I think it's the same way with any kind of mental health routine, physical health routine, eating routine, right? When you begin to say, okay, I'm not going to ingest, news media, right out, and then news media comes across and you see how negative it is, right? Oh, yeah. It's like you become, because you are consciously, I wouldn't say retreating, but putting boundaries in your life. When things cross those boundaries, it's easier to recognize.
Yeah.
And
people tell me all the time, well, how do you know what's going on in the world? Why do I need to?
Yeah.
Now, around election time, I'll go and I'll do a lot of research around what's going on, I'll do all that. If there's a headline that shows up, because typically I find out that if I actually need to know something, it will show up somewhere on social media or my page, or like I'll open something and there'll be a headline that I feel like I need to know.
Yeah, exactly.
And then about once every week or so, I'll go over to Routers and I'll look at the headlines.
Yeah.
And say, okay, is there anything here I need to know? All right. No, not really. Okay, cool. And either read it or don't read it. You know what I mean? So
exactly.
I keep up. I'm just not on,
Yeah.
And I do it very limited. It's not, I very rarely watch a news program.
Yeah, I don't at all. Like I agree with you. Like if there's something going on in the world that's important, it will show up in the news somewhere and it'll come across my space,
Mhm.
and I'll see it.
Yeah.
And then if something piques my interest, I'll go find out, well, why is this a big deal? What's going on? And,
Right.
try to get multiple views so that way it's not biased media,
Mhm.
because everything is biased now.
Yeah, I found if you do routers, because that's like the newswire,
Yeah.
typically it's pretty factual and like, this is what happened. Okay.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay.
You mean actual journalism? Stop.
Yeah, really. Just, you get the actual press release. You're
Yeah.
going, oh, yeah. But then again, I'm a communications major. So I can write the press release. And I can see, oh, this is a little there.
Yeah.
But Ken, I have had an amazing conversation with you.
I know. I can't believe it's already been 40 minutes. That's
I know.
crazy.
We could probably go on for another hour, but unfortunately, I have another meeting. So we're going to wrap this up. How do people get in touch with you?
If you're looking for leadership mentoring, I have a complimentary leadership mentoring group on Facebook. It's called Leadership Mentoring with Ken Noble. That's, if you want to just kind of get to know me a little bit better. You can find me on just about every social media platform. I'm not a Snapchat user or a TikTok guy yet. But you can find me at the Ken Noble, TheKenNoble. And yeah, my website, nobleleadershipsolutions.com. And so, there are people out there that have a business or a company or an organization that are needing leadership training and development. I'd love to help you out. So,
yeah, definitely. Ken is such a great person. Like, really, I do follow him on social media. And every time I notice something, it's like, oh, why didn't I think of that? Why didn't I say that? So between him, Mike, and Spencer, literally,
oh yeah, Spencer's great.
Every time I go to release my next workshop, a week before, you guys start talking about it.
Oh, nice.
I'm like,
it's
okay,
like we're in tune.
We're in tune or something. Like, okay. Now I planned my workshops. My whole workshops are all done for the year. I can tell you what each one is. And you guys have no clue what those are, which is kind of funny.
No, not at all.
But yeah, it's like, okay, so this month is time management. We'll do time management on the 20th. I think it's the 22nd, whatever that Wednesday.
Yeah. Actually, I saw that. Yeah.
And you guys, we're getting ready to do a retreat.
Oh, yay. Fun.
We're going camping. Woo!
Oh, nice.
That is going to be the last week of April, if I'm not mistaken. And it'll be that Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I think it ends on May 1st. And we're actually going to go and camp. We're going to be in the lodge over at St. Bernard's, I must say, State Park in Louisiana. It's right outside New Orleans. So we're going to have some fun in New Orleans while we're there. I'll be in New Orleans for a month before that, so I'll be able to scope out the best spots for us to play while we play. But the idea is to actually reconnect and rejuvenate and reclaim who you are. So I got some amazing people going to be there. We're going to have a great time.
Sounds awesome.
There's only 8 spots available.
Okay.
8. So if you want to be a part of that, make sure that you let me know. I'll have the full details later on today. I literally am going to go today and reserve the spot. So, yay!
Fantastic.
I know this has been so far in the works. It's one of those things that goes, oh my goodness, I'm actually talking about this again. I'm really talking about this, and we're really doing it. So it's really cool. But it's been amazing with you, Ken.
Yeah.
We'll definitely hang out again soon.
Sounds good.
Definitely. And look them up at Ken Noble Leadership, nobleleadershipsolutions.com. Yep. You guys are all loved. I will see you all next week.
Thanks for listening to the Creative Nomad Show. If you have any questions about this or any other episode, go to creativenomadshow.com. There's also a link at the bottom. If you are a radical and would like to be a guest, you can apply to be on the show there. Thanks again, and know that you are loved. True Awesome Life, we look for the world changers who want to live in creativity, authenticity, and profitability whenever, wherever. So check out TrueAwesomeLife.com and let's get started.